Good afternoon, everybody. It's Mr. Shakespeare here again, and I'm here with the ever-present Liz Cross, psychic medium and remote viewer. How are we doing today, Liz?
Doing very well, despite the breaking news. It's not. I'm not. I'm not really bothered by it.
All right. Well, I suppose we need to tap into Biden to see, because he said that he was saying that the US is not in a recession, and clearly they are.
Right, and it's early morning here for me, so that it's a good time to tap into Biden. Those of you that have followed me for a couple years now, you know that when I try to tap into Biden, and as we get on throughout the day, it's vacant, right? And especially by the afternoon, it's forget it. But it's early morning. He's up. He's moving. He's being given directions, briefings, security alerts, and he's somewhat, with it in the morning. He does a lot better in the morning.
Okay. So let's ask him about this then, shall we?
Okay.
The US is crashed into a recession. He said there isn't one.
Do you believe that there is currently a recession? No. He's saying no. Okay. Why do you not believe that the US is in recession? Because we're still working. So in his mind, right, and these are his own personal thoughts, feelings, and opinions, right? This is his mind probe. In his mind, people are still working. Money's still coming in. It's still flowing. And I'm saying, what do you believe a recession is? And he believes the recession is when there's huge job losses, that people are not able to find work, that the applications for food stamps, food banks, people are starving, they're living out of their cars. So he's actually, this is interesting to me. I'm glad we did this. He just quoted the 1970s to me. Okay. He says, like back in the 70s, it was diabolical. And I think it was in the UK as well, if I remember correctly. But it was bad. And he's looking at a recession to equate with Jimmy Carter 1970s, for those of you that can remember that. And it was bad. And I see what he's saying here. This is why I love doing these mind probes. You get their perspective. Because he's older, he remembers the 70s very well. And so in his mind, we are nowhere close to that, late 70s range. Therefore, he doesn't believe that there's a recession. Now, that actually makes sense, does it not?
It does. But that doesn't mean we're not, or the US is not in a recession, but it could be that the recession is not as bad as, say, the 1970s. And I would agree with that. I would actually agree with that.
I agree with that as well. Right now, it isn't as bad as the 1970s. The 1970s were rough. The UK was in bad shape as well in the 70s. Can you enlighten us why the UK was in bad shape? Because I actually don't know.
So the UK was in bad shape in the 70s because that was the decade of basically the Labour Party having no control over the unions, which were very militant. They constantly went on strike for bogus and non-bogus and factual and non-factual reasons, but it was the day of the 3-day week, the working week. We had power cuts, culminating in the miners' strike and things like that. There were lots of Labour orientated disputes, which the Labour Party which was the ruling party at the time, couldn't control, and it all descended into chaos. Really, people, factories were shutting down, for the wrong color chair handle or something. It was ridiculous in some instances, and that really finished in '79. Really, when the government, the country went to the polls and voted in a conservative government under a certain Mrs. Thatcher, and then
and then they hated her as well.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. So
I mean, they hated Thatcher as well.
They didn't hate her in the beginning. Obviously, the left wing did. That side of it always did. But there was a great slogan adopted by, I believe it was Saatchi and Saatchi, the ad agency at the time, which was one of the hot tickets at that time, I think. And they had this poster, and they just put "Labour isn't working," and it was so clever. Labour Party isn't working, they were saying, but the other inference is that Labour is all about not working, and so they were the prevailing party at the time. But yes, then the UK was in very bad recession.
It was, and the US was too. The US people were homeless, people were poor. That's during the time when mothers would patch up the clothes, okay, in both countries, right? So the kids would rip a hole in their clothes, and the mothers were sewing patches on the clothes because nobody could afford to buy clothes. So I actually understand here why Biden is saying, well, we're not in a recession. We've seen this before. And I guess the newer generations that weren't around in the 70s and 80s, they're saying, oh my God, we are in a recession. But he's comparing it to the 70s. That's interesting. That's why I like doing this. It's very interesting to me. And I know, and you take off the political 3D thinking, and it's totally irrelevant. It is relevant in one aspect, but when you get so hooked into politics, and I've said this countless times, it then distracts you from your own spiritual path. So whilst it's good to pay attention to politics, it shouldn't consume your life. But I just thought this would be an interesting probe to find out why he says there's no recession. Now we know why, and it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
People may not be happy with that.
Compared to the 1970s, he's absolutely correct.
He is correct. And that's, he remembers that vividly. And I feel like in the 1970s, what he's telling me, he was suffering as well. Now, I'm not saying Biden comes from a poor family, but he certainly noticed how bad the economy was in the 1970s. It affected everybody from the top down. He's telling me now, this isn't affecting people at the top. This isn't affecting all of the American people as a whole. The people at the top are still making tons of money. And he's right. The people at the top are still making tons of money. It's the lower, the people at the lower end of the totem pole, which are suffering. And he believes, judging from what happened in the 70s, where everybody's suffering from the top down, that's what constitutes, in his personal opinion, as a recession. So, yeah, again, it makes sense. Do you have any more questions for Biden?
No, I don't.
No, nor do I. I'm going to send him on his merry way. He likes orange juice. He likes orange juice in the morning. So just know that about him. All right. If you want to book a reading with me, my nice, shiny new website will be up today, July 28th, 2022. And for those Patreon subscribers, you will receive a coupon. Okay. those loyal subscribers on Patreon, they get a heavy discount, a big discount. So my website is psychiclizcross.com, and you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/remote viewing and beyond. Mr. Shakespeare has his own little corner on Discord, and he does check it. He may not respond, but he does check it. And he caters these videos around those suggestions. So thank you very much, Mr. Shakespeare. Thank you, Biden.
Okay, thank you.